Solar shading, the plan to block out the sun.
Imagine making that choice. Imagine seeing all this happen. The wildfires, the storms, the floods, and doing nothing about it. Under this order, environmental justice will become the responsibility of every single federal agency. I mean, every single federal agency. That means every federal agency must take into account environmental and health impacts on communities and the work to prevent those negative impacts. This executive order creates a new Office of Environmental Justice and a new role for the Chief Environmental Justice Officer. They're going to coordinate. They will coordinate all our efforts across government to make sure we're delivering the greatest possible benefits to people's lives. Executive order revitalizing our nation's commitment to environmental justice for all.
Great day.
Woohoo! Final solution. The destruction of the sky.
Put on your spiritual armor, then you may be able to stand against the new.
Hotel Bravo, this is Papa 1. Operation Dark Storm initiated.
Woodman tried to cut the machines off from the sun, their main energy source. May there be mercy on man and machine for their sins.
The Biden administration has been regurgitating a plan, backed by several billionaires, to block out the sun. So why are these billionaires so fixated on solar geoengineering and blocking out the sun? Of course, it's all in the name of climate change, and several of these billionaires have already began to hatch their plans for solar shading. The controversial billionaire George Soros spoke at the Munich Security Conference about climate change and the risks to humanity. He stated his preferred methods in dealing with this would be to brighten the clouds over the Arctic by spraying chemicals, reflecting the sun's rays.
The Arctic Ocean used to be covered pristine snow and ice that reflected the sunshine in what is called the albedo effect. But rising temperatures have caused the ice to melt, and the Greenland ice sheet is no longer so pristine. It's covered by soot from last year's forest fires on the west coast of America, Arctic shipping, and other causes. Sir David has a plan to repair the climate system. He wants to recreate the albedo effect by creating white clouds high above the Earth. With proper scientific safeguards and in consultation with local indigenous communities, this project could help re-stabilize the Arctic climate system, which governs the entire global climate system. The message is clear. Human interference has destroyed a previously stable system, and human ingenuity, both local and international, will be needed to restore it.
There's a list of other well-known billionaires that want to throw shade on the sun also. Jeff Bezos is said to have used Amazon's supercomputer to model results of what would happen after spraying sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. And the billionaire Facebook co-founder, Dustin Moskovitz, has also funded studies in Mali, Brazil, Thailand, and other countries on the effects of solar geoengineering. The billionaire Bill Gates has also backed a plan by Harvard scientists to spray calcium carbonate into the atmosphere over Scandinavia. Billy Gates is starting to kind of remind me of Mr. Burns.
Take one last look at the sun, Springfield.
Hey! I've been in Reno for 6 weeks. Did I miss anything?
So why are all these billionaires throwing their money at climate change and blocking out the sun? And will it even work?
The U.S. government office that oversees federally funded climate research has recommended studies be conducted on geoengineering, marking the first time executive branch scientists have called for studies in the controversial field. Geoengineering involves tinkering with the atmosphere to combat global warming and to collect carbon directly from the sky. In recent years, influential institutions such as the Royal Society in the United Kingdom, the U.S. National Academies, and the House Science Committee have all called for government-funded geoengineering research. Some observers have expressed concern that under Trump, the ability to remove carbon from the atmosphere could become part of a justification for delaying government action to curb carbon emissions in the coming administration.
If we want the planet to get cooler, David Keith says we have to intervene.
Solar geoengineering is the idea that humanity might deliberately alter the planet's reflectivity, reflecting away a little bit more sunlight, in order to reduce some of the heat imbalance caused by a buildup of carbon dioxide.
How would you do that? By seeding the stratosphere. That's the layer of sky beyond the clouds, about 20 kilometers above us.
Physically, it appears to be pretty easy to do. Aircraft could be used to disperse sulfur or whatever aerosol is being dispersed in the stratosphere. And then it turns from a gas into little tiny particles, and those particles reflect away sunlight and cool the planet a little bit.
But this isn't something you do only once.
We would have to start by putting 20,000 tons of sulfur in the stratosphere the first year. After 50 years, we'd be putting 1 million tons a year of sulfur in the stratosphere.
Many were horrified by this.
They're scared that it will prevent us cutting emissions.
Right, and also that it's sulfuric acid.
It is.
You're bearing the lead. Is there any possible way this could come back to bite us in the ass?
Many experts believe the results could be disastrous and compare it to opening Pandora's box. You do know what happened when they opened Pandora's box, don't you?
There's one thing scientists all agree on. Solar geoengineering could cool down the planet. Reflecting sunlight away from the Earth stops heat from getting trapped in our atmosphere. We could do that by injecting aerosols into the stratosphere, like volcanoes can do. That's the most commonly researched approach. Some scientists are also looking into brightening marine clouds so they're better at reflecting the sun. And other potential methods include reflective shields in outer space. These initiatives are still in different stages of the research phase, but in order for us to deploy these technologies and get large-scale cooling effects, we'd need to interfere with our complex climate on a massive scale. The thing is, messing with our global climate is very complicated.
The whole climate system is wired together. People could, technologically speaking, create major unpredictable changes in the way the climate system responds.
Potentially worsening the extreme weather we're already experiencing due to climate change. Nearly everyone agrees on these risks. And
you can't actually answer the most significant questions about the climate system response short of a full-scale deployment.
A full-scale deployment would require unprecedented global cooperation, not just in terms of scale, but in terms of time.
The carbon dioxide we have emitted since the Industrial Revolution and we emit today will continue to have a warming effect on climate for thousands of years from now, even if we stop emitting. But in contrast, the solar geoengineering techniques proposed have a very short lifetime in the atmosphere.
To create a continued cooling effect, we would need to deploy them constantly for centuries.
That means that you're committed to having institutions and treaties that can be adhered to for thousands of years. And that's a really unprecedented sort of burden to put on future humanity. If there's an international disagreement, war, global depression, or something that forces a sudden termination of solar geoengineering, then the world gets hit with this rapid warming.
That rapid warming is called termination shock, and the risk of it happening is one of the big reasons critics think solar geoengineering is ungovernable and unsustainable. And so far, we have a pretty poor record of figuring out how to move things forward. In 2021, Sweden rejected a pioneering project to test solar geoengineering technology. Environmental and indigenous groups issued a letter highlighting the potential for creating drastically uneven, unpredictable changes on climate, weather, and biodiversity, and geopolitical tensions it might awaken.
It would cause great changes to our environment and to our ecosystems, and those precious ecosystems that we are advocating so hard for to protect and safeguard and secure and strengthen.
Opposition like this is one reason that most solar geoengineering research is taking place in labs with models and simulations, turning the debate about solar geoengineering into one about how far we should take the research.
So research that's on fundamental climate processes, that doesn't develop the technology that leads to deployment, that can provide useful information.
Computer simulations and modeling are midway through the spectrum. Critics of solar geoengineering worry that the more modeling we do, the closer we'll get to full-scale deployment. But they acknowledge that some simulations are useful, and a key part of overall science we can't eliminate.
We are pretty clear on the idea that research that was essentially technology development that would lead to deployment was something that the signatories are opposed to.
Lily Thier, who works at the Center for International Environmental Law, told me something similar.
As soon as we let the genie out of the bottle, if we not only just theoretically research, but completely develop a certain technology, it will most certainly get used. We've seen that with other technologies as well.
About a year later, in February of 2023, 110 scientists, including Keith, issued a letter in support of more research into solar geoengineering. They want a robust international scientific assessment. That includes experiments that could potentially advance technology, but stated that while we fully support the research, this does not mean we support the use of solar geoengineering tech. A big concern both sides agree on is the negative impact solar geoengineering could have on decarbonization efforts, and that the tech might act as an excuse for oil and gas companies to keep selling fossil fuels.
To unleash the technology of solar geoengineering on the world at a time when we've just barely started to get people interested in doing the hard decarbonization, that will just inevitably increase the pressure to just take business as usual.
I absolutely agree that a risk around these technologies is that they will be exploited by people who want to preserve emissions.
But agreeing on the issue doesn't mean agreeing on the path forward.
That is a political concern. In my view, it is not an ethical basis for restricting research on technologies that are potentially risk-reducing.
So far, Mexico is the only country that's banned solar geoengineering experiments, while the U.S. is currently developing a solar geoengineering research plan. World organizations focused on climate are now starting to make assessments and recommendations.
And even though the experts remain divided on the issue, testing has already begun on American soil. A startup company named Make Sunsets has began testing in Nevada. They've launched balloons containing sulfur dioxide into the sky, and the results have yet to be published. But I mean, what could all go wrong? Blocking out the sun sounds perfectly normal, right?
Good morning. Today's top story is the ozone layer. It continues to disintegrate, taking with it our protection from the sun's rays.
The White House today
NASA
declared a state of national emergency. The president urged all Americans
too dangerous, they say.
In Africa, where shelter from the sun is almost non-existent, the dead and dying number in the millions.
Only a few months now until the ozone layer is completely gone. A team of international scientists led by Dr. Alan Neyman and supervised by Connor McLeod work around the clock. This may be the last chance for planet Earth.
They'll remember this day for 1,000 years. The day we protected the planet from the sun.
This is TSC. We are standing by for shield launch.
All personnel, please leave the area. We are starting the final countdown.
All systems are go. Please run final checks on all shield power elements.
All personnel, please leave the area. We are starting the final countdown.
Stand by. This is it.
Roger, Control. We are standing by.
This is it. Monitor Control, this is TSC. The December shield installation is ready to proceed. All power sources. This is TSC. ready to receive. Launch minus 10. 10 seconds and counting.
Okay, boys, let's make this a good one. The world is watching.
4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition.
First, the weather changed. The deniers knew why, but they still doomed us with their lies. War made the Earth even hotter. Her ice melted, and all her species crashed. So the men of science tried to cool the Earth, to reverse the damage they had sown. But instead, they froze her to the core. Only the visionary Mr. Wilford foresaw the future, and he prepared the Great Arc Train. In the final days of the freeze, the rich, many of them responsible, retreated to Snowpiercer, 1,001 cars long. So we, the people, the survivors left behind, we invaded their train.